Welcome. I'm Chris McKean.
And I'm Andy Kyner.
We're all about cross-country racing, and generally it starts with 10 seconds.
But not in Iowa. In Iowa, it starts with hands-on helmets.
Welcome. What's going on lately?
I think we're all just trying to get away from work and everything, get home safely and be able to do this tonight.
Get home safely. Still trying to recover. I think what is this? My third week with a cold. So I apologize. I might be snuffling, and throwing in a cough drop here and there, so I don't cough all podcast. But maybe we'll kick it here shortly.
Hopefully, yeah. You've had it for quite a while. You sound a lot better though.
I feel a lot better. I was pretty down and out this weekend, not being able to do much, and that's unusual for me.
Mm-hmm. You still don't look good though.
Well, thanks. Take that as a compliment coming from you.
So we got a good one tonight. This is one that I've been looking forward to. This is probably one that most people, every single person can use this. But again, it's not one of those things that's going to make your bike faster, but it's going to make you so much stronger if you can grab a hold of some of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. And literally everybody can benefit, whether you're at work or whether it's for the track or you're wrestling or doing any other sport,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, we have a couple guests. We got Matt Lindle joining us again and Brady Kyner. Kind of a last minute ad, but yeah, we thought Brady's insight as well would be important tonight as a racer and also as a coach.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Are you ready to bring him on, buddy?
I'm ready.
The other challenge tonight is going to try to keep you to an hour. That's if I can.
That's a challenge I'll take tonight.
So, kind of a lot of information we'll pack in. Try to answer as many questions and also look for some insight from those that are tuning in as well. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our guests.
Sounds good.
Welcome, Matt, Brady.
How are you guys?
Glad to be back.
Good.
Matt's going to quit answering the phone as many times as we call him. Of course, Brady always gets the phone call at like 3:30. We need you at 4, so. Hey, I know you both got a lot going on, Matt. You're terribly busy right now with your farming and stuff going on and everything. And I know Brady just literally got out of practice and still sitting in your office, I see. So thank you guys very much for taking the invitation again to come on and do this. This is all about helping our riders, and whether it be on the track or at home or maybe in another sport, as we talk about a little bit later. But I don't know two people in our series, not knocking anybody when I say this, but two people more prepared to talk about a subject like we got tonight. Matt, every time I even think about the subject, you're one of the first things that come up. You obviously won the Ironman, at the Heartland Challenge 3 times in a row. And just the stuff that you and I have talked about with, I remember one time you told me that I asked you how you keep going, during, get to that 4th, 5th, 6th hour where it tends to break a lot of people. And I remember you told me you wait for the people to pull out of the pits and challenge yourself to beat them every time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's how I did all my training and everything. Pick small goals. And when I say small goals, I mean really small. So say, for example, you're out for a jog, bike ride, doesn't matter what you're doing, anything. You're out doing a workout. And so I'm on a jog and I'm running gravel roads. I got a lot of gravel roads around me, and I'm jogging. Sometimes when it gets tough, I just literally pick out the next telephone pole, the next driveway, the next blade of grass that's a little taller than the rest. It didn't matter what it was, just something, a little goal, get to that one. All right, I made it to that one, get to the next one. And that's just how I've always kind of approached things. So in the racing, it was, for me, it was a lot of the same. It was just when I get tired like that and you get in that headspace where you want to give up and you just don't think you can really keep pushing. I just set just almost microscopic goals, just the smallest of goals that I can just get to the next 5 seconds. It doesn't matter how far it is, and then the next and the next. And so those were always good points for me, is I learned a lot, so it was easier in the second two than it was the first Heartland Challenge, of course. But that's with anything, you learn as you go. And so I just set little goals. So then I'd latch on to somebody and it'd kind of get me maybe out of a slump that I was in because it was hour 5 and I was struggling or whatever. I mean, I remember, for example, my last one that I did as a 2-man team in the AA class. I remember getting hooked up with Johnny Gallagher in the nighttime and riding with him for almost, I think it was 30, 40 minutes and just trying to pull his pace because I was really struggling. Just kind of in a slump. I was just hitting a wall. I couldn't seem to push through it, and it helped me. All right, I know I can hang with this guy on a good day, so I got to force myself to do it now, and it just helps you kind of pull you through.
Understand. And that's something we see even in a normal race. With a 2-hour normal race, you get to about hour time and nobody can tell you better than Chris and the people at the scoring that people come through and they're hitting that wall. Usually it's second lap type thing. And there, how much time's left. And I think Chris is ready when he hears that and knows that, hey, we're starting to hurt out there, and once they break through that wall, the ones that do, and tonight's all about not just the ones that don't. Some people aren't aware of how to break down that that wall, but even the ones that do, it's like maybe I can do something better to get through it faster. So I'm really interested to see what you guys got to say. Brady, welcome to you too. Talking about Matt and his racing and everything he's got going on right now with your racing and stuff. I know you and I have talked several times about different issues on the track and stuff. I know I'm a little biased, obviously, because you're my son, but taking that out of the picture, you've taught me a lot over the years and more now, I think, than any time about staying positive and worrying about what you can control and stuff like that. So I'm going to let you guys kind of talk here, but I guess really quick, though, Brady, just kind of tell us what you got going now and how this applies to your everyday situation on what you're doing nowadays.
Yeah, first off, I have a young kid that goes crazy every night, so trying to stay awake to get him to bed, and then a little one on the way. But wrestling wise, being a coach and the second half of this season, we've been kind of grinding since.
Yeah.
The first half is easy because you have to look forward to Christmas and a break away, and then you come back and have January to mid-March, and it's a tough kind of time because everyone wants to look ahead and then kind of see what's at the end, but being able to focus on each day and trying to get something out of each day, and by the time you do that, you're at that end point and then it's over. So if you can take your focus on every day, whether it's getting up at the first alarm or making your bed, so you have something accomplished for sure after each day, so you can go to bed knowing you did something. But wrestling wise, making weight along with the class schedule, sometimes it can add up, and just making sure that I'm someone that is fake, whether I feel good or not, I got to fake and act like there's energy today, so I can make sure that they have something to look forward to, and can give me everything they got. And having someone to go to in the wrestling room and we talk is the time we get to spend in the wrestling room is 4% of our day. So if you can give me 4% of your day, you're going to get something out of it the rest of the day. So, and that just everyday life too, is just making sure you get something little out of every day. But wrestling is especially tough. And at the collegiate level, 27 of my 30 girls are freshmen or sophomores. So they have even no clue what's going on. So trying to trick them into getting the most out of today is something that is challenging every day.
I'll bet. So you two obviously have a ton of challenges like in the everyday situation like we just talked, but you both have such a racing background. Brady's starting a lot younger than the Matt, doing a lot of the national series where Brady really hasn't. But you've seen a lot of the same things. I'm gonna turn it over to you two, and my question, I guess, is where I'm gonna try to talk less because we need out of here tonight, obviously. But I'm gonna turn it over to you guys, and I'd like for you guys to start at the beginning, okay? And Matt, I know you haven't been there. Brady's been there at 4 years old, getting started. But you guys have both seen the youth racing, either participated or see it on an everyday basis when you're racing, and just kind of work your way up. Some of the things that might change throughout that, from age wise till you get up to Matt, your level, and, the pro-am and stuff. But not only that, but then just to keep taking it all the way to, like you guys both mentioned, with life, and how you take that positivity and what I'm getting out of each day, to work or when you're getting up every morning. So I'm just going to turn it over to you guys and let you guys kind of bounce off each other. I know Paul Cirque will be happy if I'm not talking.
Well, Brady's probably got even more insight doing some coaching than I do on the younger side of things. Plus he raced younger. I didn't do any racing younger, so I just have a perspective from a fan's perspective, I guess, watching youth riders and stuff like that. I almost always watched youth races when I was around. But when the youth racers, to me, it needs to really be directed towards fun at that age. I don't like when the younger kids get the parents kind of force them into getting too serious with it. I think they need to really stick to the fun at that age and just kind of, coaching is fine, but I don't like getting too aggressive with it. I just feel like they need to really get a baseline love for the sport and enjoyment. And then as they get a little bit older, in the teen years, then you kind of can start maybe pushing them and shaping them and molding them a little bit more. But the young kids, I'm just not a huge believer in being too harsh on them. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Brady, but I just feel like it's got to be a lot more fun and just get a baseline enjoyment for the sport at that age, no matter what the sport is, for that matter. I don't care if it's baseball or wrestling or anything. I just think you need to give the baseline enjoyment, not get too much criticism going that young.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And I've seen the cycles in the series, and we're in a really good spot as a series is where kids can come to race and they don't even care about the racing part. They just care about hanging out with their friends, and their families allow that. And that's what makes the racing more fun and more intense, because they can go out and because they're racing their buddies. Where, we've had cycles where it's all about, hey, who's got the most money and who's got the best machine, where now I just feel like we just got a bunch of families that love to come together, and it makes racing and the weekends more enjoyable, which allows the sport to be more fun, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. That to me is huge for the younger generation. I'm just not a big believer in pushing them too hard at that young age. And like I said, when they get to the teen years, then that's when I think the coaching and the mindset and even the better machine and everything starts playing a more of a role, and start tweaking with things and working on stuff. I think that's in any sport. I believe that. That's, like I said, my personal opinion. No kids and never race youth, but that's just my personal opinion on it.
You have to agree. It's been a while for me to remember back too.
Yeah, grow up pretty fast. It's hard to believe I'm going to be 34 tomorrow, I think. Yeah, 34.
Wow.
I just turned 26. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Well, then get to a little bit older, like I said, teen years. I think that's a good time to maybe start doing a little more shaping and molding of the mindset and the fitness and the kids and fitness. It's to me, it's almost not necessary. Kids have an abundance of energy when you're a little kid and stuff, but once you get a little bit older into the teen years, then I think that's when it's good to really start shaping the mindset and the fitness a little bit more. And for me, that's when I really feel like I guess my earliest memories of being able to really realize that I kind of just, I guess, naturally have the mindset to be able to truly push myself to maybe not as much as some people, but I feel like I've found my own physical limits multiple times, and I can get there just in fun. It doesn't even have to be a competitive setting. I like the challenge of just pushing myself mentally and physically, and so it was a little bit easier for me. I didn't really have a mentor or anything like that in that aspect. I played football until I was a sophomore, but then I really got into racing, so I didn't really do any organized sports after that. Looking back on it in hindsight, I would really like to have wrestled, because I think I would have excelled, at least in the physical aspect. I love the physical push. That's one thing that really made me enjoy racing so much, was the physical push.
Yeah, and I think when I really started to notice my mental, obviously wrestling, but I mean, we had a little racetrack in the back, and I don't know if it was myself or dad or watching my brother go slow or whatever, that I wanted to see if I could beat him in one corner. And then it just, just like, hey, how fast can I get this corner? And then you fail a few times, like, hey, I went over the berm or whatever. Or maybe do I use more front brake here? And just kind of, I don't know. I just always had the mind of kind of innovating to find a way to improve these little areas. And then again, you're walking the track at the racetrack and be like, man, this corner looks a lot like so-and-so corner on our track. Is how can I set up to hit this corner better? And then fast forward as you're racing, is you're picking apart how other people hit the corners, right? And then you're trying to analyze and seeing the next time if you can set it sideways a little bit earlier, or you can dive in harder. And then that just kind of evolves into the next corner and the next corner. And then all of a sudden your focus is off of how tired you're getting, rather than you're just attacking the next corner.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I did the same thing when I was speaking earlier on the little goals. That's kind of what I just call them, mini goals. I always did that. I almost feel like I was better in my own personal setting, just me in the woods, whether it was practicing or if I was jogging or if I was mountain biking or whatever I was doing. I almost was better in my own little world. I just always had that mindset of I want to best my last time, or I want to get to this point by this time, or I want to do this, or like you said, make this corner better. I used to just set up little tracks that would be, they'd be 30, 45 second lap times, just trying to just hammer away and get one specific section just as fast as I could, and pushing myself. And I personally have always kind of gravitated towards that. To me, it's mental. Your body will eventually give up. I understand that, but to me, it's 90% mental. Get yourself to where you're uncomfortable, and then that's when the fun always started for me. It's misery for most, but that's when I was like, okay, now we'll see what I'm actually made of. When I get to the point where I'm like, this kind of sucks, I kind of want to just go shower and be done and sit on the couch. That's when I just kept. I had a lot of times I'd set out on a bike ride or a run, for example, and I'm going to do 3 miles, and I'd get 3 miles in, and I'm like, all right, now we're going to see if I can do a little more. And then I'd get to the last mile. I'd decide, okay, I might be 8, 9 miles in, and I'm like, this is my last mile, and I'm going to try and make it my fastest one yet. I just have always kind of had that mindset of just competing with myself on that level. And I think what Brady was saying too about the corners, I think some people are just afraid to try stuff. Whether it's in training or in racing, they're afraid to push and just try things and just see what they're capable of. And I was never that way. I was always wanting to see what I was actually capable of, whether it was in practice or in a race. It didn't matter. There's just trying it, just seeing what you can do.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think that's where our minds kind of are like, where like in a race or a wrestling match or a run, like I always knew I was going to get tired, and I just wanted to get tired so I could be tired and so I could get over it, so then I could keep going. Like it's the point for me that like, when am I going to get tired? Because I knew I was going to get tired. That's okay, right? But like, how can I get that to come faster? So now once I get overtired, then I'm unbeatable, right? Like I can keep going. I know my mind can keep going. And people's always told me like, you go till you pass out. Well, I've never gone till I passed out. So I'm always got more in me to keep going. And I think that's where people allow their minds to let them control what's going on, right? Yeah, you got arm pump, but you're controlling how your muscles are working. Like, are you breathing? Like, are you doing these little things? Are you focused on your arms being locked up, that you are now not focused on what's in front of you? Your arms bent, your knees bent, staying relaxed in your posture. That I never believed arm pump was a thing, because I never got it, but I always made sure I breathed. And obviously it's a thing, people get it, but I don't want that to happen to me, but that's just my belief.
Yeah, I agree. To me, it was always, once I got to that point where I was to where I feel like I have in the past, and I mean, pretty much everybody has at some point at least gave up. I say you get to that point where you want to give up. To me, that's when I started running my best because I got out of my own head. I had enough energy before that point that my mind was not solely focused on the goal. And when I got to that point where I was tired, where I was just like, my legs hurt, my lower back hurts, my arms hurt. I'm struggling. Then there was only one focus after that, and it was get to the next corner, get through this next rough downhill section, get around the next corner, I mean, it's just, that's all it was. It just the little wins after that, because you're solely focused on, like you said, your breathing, your body position, whatever it may be. Just get to the end as fast as possible. I really just honed in focus, and I do this. I honestly the same thing at work. I find myself, farming's typically a little bit slower in the wintertime, so I find myself maybe relaxing a little more and not working quite as hard as I normally do the rest of the year. And I don't like it as much. I mean, for me, the busy time, spring and fall, that's where I thrive. I mean, I like the pressure of when I know I have 10 people's job to do and I only have 24 hours to get it done today. And so let's just buckle down and focus and get it done. That's when I do my best work. And like I said, that's not just racing, not just training, because anymore I don't really do either of them. It's all business focused for me. And so when there's a problem, there's a breakdown, there's a big issue or something, and to me, it's just that I get that singular focus, and it's just go time, get it done at all costs, figure it out. That I work my best at that, and I wish people could put themselves in those situations. So I'd put yourself in those voluntarily. So go do a workout and push yourself to where there's nothing left, or you don't think there's anything left to give, and then just get focused on a couple more pedals of the bike. Like I said, a few more feet if you're running. Doesn't matter what it is. One more rep in the gym, whatever it may be. I mean, it just put yourself in those voluntarily, and it really helps shape you to understand. Then when you have those in real life, no matter what it may be, whether it's family things or whether it's work, you know you can do it. You get there and you're like, okay, I know this feeling. It sucks. It's not ideal, but I know I can push through. I know I can keep going.
Yeah, and I think the word pressure is a big thing that I don't know if families don't want kids to have pressure, but pressure, I believe, is good in the right ways. You know, the pressure to perform and try your best, rather than maybe people are under the circumstances of pressure to win, right? I mean, you're not going to get anything out of that. I mean, that's an uncontrollable goal of winning, where the controllable pressure of attacking, you know, giving your best as a kid adds up. And then, you know, like our society in schools is like, and it should be flipped, right? I mean, the ones that go hard are the ones that look down upon, right? And then they do less and less because they don't want to be the single one out, where, you know, in our sport, you got to be the single one out. Like, someone's got to go harder. Someone's got to outwork each other in a corner or whatever. I didn't care if I was the only one, and I actually wanted to be the only one going hard because I knew I was going to be the hardest worker. You know, like, if I was the last one, then I was the toughest one, you know, like, or if I can go harder and believe people, and I would even trick myself into other people are getting tired, you know, like whether I was getting tired on the track or not, but I see someone have a bad corner, I'm like, they're probably getting tired. I'm good, you know, like, and just kind of just reeling yourself back in, whether you're tired or not, and just finding little ways to get that pressure back on. Hey, just attack the next corner.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think people get too in their head and want to be too like everybody else, and you don't get outliers. I mean, you don't get the people like Bill Balance that wins 9 championships or the John Jones of MMA. You don't get those people by doing what everybody else is doing. It's like I said, I really believe that you want to put yourself in those positions voluntarily. I mean, it's wrestling practice. I'm sure you guys, it's not hard. I mean, sometimes you're gonna work harder and have harder drills and practices than you will ever have matches, and that's for a reason. I mean, it's not a secret, and that's how I kind of approached the racing too. For me, it was the training. If I put myself in those positions mentally when I'm training for like I said, it doesn't matter what it's doing. If I'm weightlifting, if I'm on the rowing machine, if I'm running outside, if I put myself in those positions mentally and physically, then I know what to expect when I get to the halfway point of a race or wherever that wall may hit, because I've been there. I've been there when there was nothing on the line. It didn't matter. I could have just stopped and walked home. It might have taken me a few extra minutes to walk home, but I could have just stopped jogging and walked home. But instead, I decided to run an extra 3 miles or whatever it may be, and just see how uncomfortable I could get myself, and knowing that, to me, that's invaluable in life. I mean, it just really is. Doesn't matter if you're a coach, if you're a farmer, it doesn't matter what you're doing. To me, it is invaluable to know that you're capable of that. And if you do it voluntarily, you're damn sure capable of it when it actually comes up in a real life situation.
Yeah, I'd agree. And something that we talk a lot about in my program and just at Wartburg is how well can you handle hard? Like how hard can you handle? You know, like, can you get to hard and you give up? Or like, can you handle hard? Can you handle hard better? You know, like how hard does it got to get till you break, you know, and you just keep kind of pushing that back. And I mean, I only raced one race this year, and like, that's all that went through my head is like, how well can I handle hard this time? You know, how well can I handle hard in this next 15 minutes? You know, because after that 15 minutes goes, like, I'm another 15 minutes closer, and like, just keep attacking and handling hard better, basically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I also think if you're doing the things that you know you should be doing, if you're training, if you're pushing yourself, and like I said, you don't have to be, if say you don't train, if you're just doing the extra work, the maintenance, or if it's you're going the extra mile at your job, whether you're a business owner or you're working for somebody, if you're just doing a little bit extra that you don't necessarily always want to do, and if you do that consistently, that hard, no matter what it may be in life, just doesn't seem quite as hard. It just doesn't. It's just not quite as hard as it was. Like you said, you just keep pushing that back. So if you do that consistently for a couple of years, hard is now, the goalposts have now moved 50%, maybe more. You know, you never know. It just depends on how much you push that. And I think the same thing, like, to apply it to racing, is, like you said, pressure is good. I agree with that. But at the same time, if you do enough training, if you're pushing yourself, you get to that starting line, you get to that wrestling match, you get to whatever you're doing, doesn't matter, any sport, pick it. When you get there, you know you've put the work in. You've relieved some pressure off of your own mind. If you go to the starting line knowing that you gave up on 2 of your 4 workouts for the week halfway through because it just was the easy way out, then you're going to have that pressure in your own mind is going to be heavier than if you pushed it a little bit extra, or whatever. If you worked a little bit harder at your job that week, just gave that little bit extra effort, whatever it may be, I think it relieves some of that pressure anyway. So then you don't necessarily have those things creeping in your mind in the first part of a race, or at the end. Doesn't really matter. It's you relieve that because I've done it. So if my best is my best, then I mean, you can actually say that.
And it just becomes what you do. That's the biggest thing.
Yep.
It just becomes what you do.
If you do it long enough, it does. That's a lot of people don't realize that. But if you do, if you push it long enough and hard enough, it's just who you are. It's what you do. It is.
And
so
go ahead.
We've you guys talked about mini wins here, and that's kind of like how mentally you can prepare yourself for the races. There's also, the aspect of nutrition, and also just daily fitness and fitness routines. Just kind of keep us moving along. You guys want to maybe start give your input on maybe your nutrition and how that plays an effect during the race season?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had it pretty figured out. I mean, when we went from a morning race and afternoon race, and then to one afternoon race, that kind of mixed things up a little bit, but making sure, like, I always had my weeks laid out, and definitely water was a big thing. But the big thing that was for me, the hard part was eating in the morning before the race, because I had the adrenaline already. I wanted to get there and I could never force myself to eat. So Nutritionally, I always made sure I always prefer pasta and like a chicken parm, a lot of pasta Friday night, just to make sure I had enough fuel for Saturday morning, because it was the races that I knew I didn't have enough of those carbs long lasting come 3 p.m. that my body was drained of all the water and the nutrients. So for nutrition, at least, exercise wise, man, I loved mountain biking. Obviously wrestling, but nothing beats seat time. Whether my favorite was riding a dirt bike, just because I could go a little bit faster and I didn't have to maintenance my four-wheeler as much. Just a little rinky-dink dirt bike, and you can push it harder. And balance-wise, throwing the bike around, it just allowed me to correlate everything to make sure I was, at least believed I was ready, whether I was or not.
Yeah, I believe the internet's a great thing. People can find better nutrition and workout information than what I'll probably give them if they really want to do the research and study. I probably pushed it a little too hard, a little too often. I know there's plenty of studies out there saying you don't need to take it to 10 every single workout that you do. But those were always my favorite. Just kind of a crazy person in that way. But you don't necessarily have to go to 10. I know that. I mean, like I said, there's programs out there, and you can find, to me, mountain biking, road biking, stuff like that. The way they train, I think, is very similar. The biggest thing for us, I think there needs to be some weight training thrown in there. I believe the core and lower body strength is extremely important. With that being said, it's not 100 reps of those. I think you need to do heavy weight, low rep, and then the cardio is then doing your separate cardio is how you get the cardio base. But just the raw strength, I think, helps out in our sport a lot with the heavy four-wheelers and just the explosiveness that we need. As far as nutrition goes, definitely not the guy to talk to on that. I eat a lot of ice cream.
Drinking Mountain Dew before a race and maybe having a smoke probably isn't the healthiest.
No, probably not the healthiest.
Just asking for somebody I know.
No, I was never a pop person. Still am not. I don't drink pop or anything like that. But no, I mean I struggled the same as Brady said. I struggled to eat before the races. I know it's important. I've done both. I've actually been fasting for almost 24 hours before a race before. I've tried a lot of things. I tried anything. I did that. I've eaten right before races. I've eaten hours before races, pasta. I've eaten just healthy fats and stuff. I've tried it all. Definitely wouldn't recommend fasting. Didn't bother me too much, but I wouldn't recommend it. You do need those carbs. That is important, especially for water retention and everything. And the water is huge. I mean, if people don't know that, then that's on them, I guess. But water's definitely huge. The nutrition for me was, I probably could have done a little better, but I wasn't terrible by any means, but I did have a big problem eating before races. I probably should have eaten more. That was definitely a hard point for me. I just was never hungry, and it just kind of sat in my stomach and just wasn't the easiest for me. When I did eat, it was pretty early in the morning, and then I didn't eat anything for quite a few hours before the race.
I think nutritionally too, I think we want instant gratification, and hey, I'm gonna eat good Friday night and I'm gonna feel good Saturday, but I'm gonna eat junk all week. Like, you gotta train your body to do those, whether it's 3 days out doing the same thing or doing a week out, trying it Friday night, eating the same meal, and then going out and doing a hard workout just to see how you feel, because different foods affect different people, and you got to find what works for you. And I think, again, you can simulate as much as you want, and you can get about anything simulated. And again, like nutritionally, it's kind of what makes you feel the best, because there's different things for each person.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think I was definitely on the side of not eating quite as much as most, but something is it's definitely necessary before a hard deal like a 2-hour race. It is, you want to get something in you, whether it's some carbs, some healthy fats, stuff like that. You got to get something in you, and a lot of water for sure.
So I got a question for you guys. This is going to work on your nutrition that you're talking about, and this is also a question about what you were talking about earlier with the being positive and training your mind to go through that stuff, like to break down the walls and stuff. So on both of those together, we get out there racing. I think I've seen both of you. I know one that both of you were involved in with, I remember Brady at Cahokia one time. This comes to mind. But so you're racing, you're prepared, you've ate everything you could, and make everything right. You're positive, you line up, you take off, second, third lap, an hour into it, maybe 10 minutes into it. All of a sudden something goes wrong. I remember what I'm talking about, Brady, is I think he was following you, Matt, if I remember right. I might be wrong. Maybe it's Tucker.
I don't know if I was ever following either one of those. It'd be a ways back.
No, it was right on the start, I think, if I remember right. And you jumped down in the ditch at the old Cahokia track and sprained both of you had one bad ankle and you sprained the other one. You got off your bike that time and you had to stick both feet in the cooler because you couldn't hardly walk. And needless to say, any of those situations, you've both had incidents on the track, whether something broke, whether something happened, you wrecked, you flipped the bike, whatever it might be, had a flat tire. How do you physically and mentally get yourself back into it when something goes wrong like that to say, okay, that's happened, now I need to go? How do you get yourself back on track?
Well, for me, I would say, depending on what it is, if it's a bike problem and then it's still rideable, of course, evaluate. I would start riding it and seeing how bad is it, depending on what it is. Is it a blown shock? Is it just maybe your handlebars are tweaked or whatever, maybe a broken clutch lever or something? Evaluate it. Start out a little bit on the conservative side with your riding, and then gradually pick it up as you're comfortable, and you'll adapt to it very quickly. I mean, we're humans, we adapt quickly. You'll figure out how to ride if something on the machine's messed up. Now, if it comes to physical, for me, at this stage with some injuries that I've had and that linger a little bit, I would say definitely err on the side of caution with bodily injuries and let them heal and properly. But if it's something that like it's just something you can fight through, you just got a bad bruise, like I have an example. I have a scar on my shoulder here. I got hit with a big stick in I believe it was an OMA race one time, and it cut me pretty good on the shoulder, ripped almost the whole arm of my jersey off, and it was a pretty nice cut. But I took a couple. I was leading when it happened, but it was real early in the race, and I took a couple of glances at it to see that it's definitely bleeding and it's definitely a wound, but it stopped bleeding pretty quick, and I just fought through the pain. I knew that wasn't going to be anything long term, that I'm going to have a problem with my wrist or my ankles or whatever it may be. So I just had to focus and push through. It takes a little while. The pain really sets in afterwards, but you can fight through if you want. But if it's something too serious, I mean, definitely pull off and evaluate. I fought through some that are. My right hand is a little messed up because I raced for about 1.5 years on an injury that I probably should have taken 6 months off and just let it heal instead, and I never did. And so now it still bugs me on occasion. So now that I'm a little older and maybe a little wiser in some areas, I would say the injuries, you definitely got to play caution with them.
And I probably shouldn't even used an injury to speak of. I should have said, like, whether maybe just missing a corner, hitting a ravine, you flip it. You have to get back on that bike. Am I done? Am I just going to cruise around, or am I going to physically and mentally break that wall, of having something issue? It's how do I move forward from there?
Yeah,
go ahead, Brady.
I think it's tough because adrenaline does funny things. So we can all talk like it's an easy thing to refocus. We all kind of freak out a little bit right away just because of adrenaline, and we want to get back going. And I think the biggest thing I've learned is once you can get back on the bike is to allow yourself to ride into where you were at, and allowing your breathing and your heart rate to kind of come back down, because all the work you put in to get out of a mud hole, or you got a stick stuck in your arm, whatever it may be, that you have asserted a lot of energy, and you got to allow that body to calm back down so you can refocus and get back on track. I think that's the biggest thing that I allow, because I see people hit a tree and then they get back up and they hit the next tree because they're not allowing themselves to get back on the track they need to be in order to get back racing hard.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's something I didn't do really well while I was racing, but I can see now that I should have. You have that. We've all had it. I mean, many of tip overs or incidents that you get tangled up or whatever it may be, and you get the adrenaline dump and your heart rate spike. You jump back on and you're still trying to go at that 110% pace. And I think it's just maybe back it down 5%, 10% off of what you were doing. Catch your breath, because you're still moving forward. As long as you're back on the track, you're back going. You're still moving forward. You're not losing time at the same level as if you were just sitting still. So just keep moving forward at a comfortable pace. Focus on your breathing, hitting your marks, not overriding at all. Then later in my career, I kind of learned that, and you'd be surprised at how fast you can get yourself to recover if you focus on your breathing, relaxing your arms, not death gripping the bars because you have that huge adrenaline dump or anything. And just basically then once you get your heart rate back under control, then refocus and get back to that full race pace. You don't have to back it off to 20% of what you were doing. Just back it down just a little bit, and if you're more focused at a comfortable riding pace, so you can focus on the breathing and the grip and your seat position and that stuff to get your heart rate back down. That's something I wish I would have learned a lot sooner.
So kind of same scenario away from racing, though, like everyday life, you got a meeting at work, type situation, and you go out in the morning, you jump in your Prius, you take off to work, and you have a flat tire. How do I get past that mental thing of having a flat and being late to work type situation? How do you guys deal with like stuff like that?
Well, for me, I've gotten rather good at it, but that's kind of the nature of the beast with the farming is whatever can go wrong will go wrong. And when you think you have everything perfect, equipment will remind you that you have nothing figured out and nothing's going to work properly. So for me, it's kind of hard for me to really even comment too much on that one, because it's such a part of my everyday. I mean, that's literally my day to day. Is I call it putting out fires, and my day to day is it's an employee calling with this problem at this chicken barn or this problem at this barn, or a semi's got a flat on the side of the road, or a brake drum exploded, or it's got a airbag that had a hole blown in it, or we're combining and you had this problem or that. I mean, that's literally my day to day. That's 9 out of my 10 days. That's what it is. That's all I do. So it's really routine for me now at this point. So I'm not necessarily the greatest at commenting on it, other than, to me, all I think of whenever it happens is it's life. For me, it's the job I chose. So it's just part of life, and it's just, you got to deal with it, and getting worked up about it and throwing a fit or cussing or being mad about it doesn't help you, and it definitely doesn't help air that tire up or whatever it may be. So just stop, take 2 seconds, think, what are my options? I got a flat tire on the side of the road. Do I have my spare? Do I have the jack? Am I close enough to home? Do I have a friend, a dad, a mom, whoever that can come help me, pick me up, whatever it may be? Just instead of freaking out or looking at the negatives, it's just, to me, I always, when something like that happens that's bad, I just 5-10 seconds, just stop, take a breath. What are the options? To me, that's where I always look first for my day to day. Is if I get a call and it's a feed line issue at one of my chicken barns or something like that, I ask a couple of questions, and then there's usually a pause, and I'm like, okay, I'm just thinking in my head, what are my options? What's the quickest way to get it working, or whatever, and then I go from there. I might give myself 5 options. There might only be one option. And once I have those, then I evaluate which one of those is the best and move forward. It doesn't help yourself or anybody if you throw a fit over something, no matter how big or small it is.
Yeah, I mean, I try and humble myself every day before I walk out or when I wake up. Like, there's probably something that's not going to go well today, and it's again how well you're going to handle hard. Because in my job there's always a problem, whether it's someone failing a class or overweight or whatever it may be. There's always something. So just being prepared for that mentally is something. And maybe I'm bad for saying I prepare for bad things to happen, not necessarily bad things, but how I'm going to respond to bad things or things that don't go well. I think I do well now after I stress, but that's after the fact. But I mean, if I had a flat tire, man, I'd probably see if I'm close enough to run to where I'm going, and I'd probably get there and then figure it out later. But that's just me.
I think it all comes back to what we were saying earlier. If you're pushing yourself and voluntarily, or if you're doing things, those things aren't. It's just another problem you have to solve. It doesn't. I mean, the problem is how hard can I push myself in the workout or whatever. I mean, it's a flat tire. It really doesn't matter. It's how, like you said, it's the hard. You're not. Shoot, sorry, cat knocked my phone over. It's just if you're willing to push yourself there, those little things don't seem as bad. I mean, they're just adversity. You just part of life to me. I mean, that because I've grown accustomed to it, and I kind of enjoy pushing myself in certain aspects. So it doesn't seem as bad. The flat tire doesn't seem as bad as it maybe did at one point in my life.
I think a lot of what you guys are saying there, dealing with the the situation that you're thrown at you, is believe it or not, I'm hearing the same thing as like if you're racing. It's a same scenario. Something goes wrong. It's like, how do I redirect my attention, my focus, and stuff. And I was just curious on how you guys would handle that. But so one thing I want to ask you about too is you've gotten through the race. Let's just say it's the last lap, maybe take me through the scenario with both of you here, but let's say it's the last lap. You're one person in front of you and you got to catch that person, where does your mind, how do you get that extra energy when you're towards the end of the race? And you've got to have that extra push. Where does that come from? And then let's just say that something happens and you don't get that person, or maybe something you break, maybe, or you have an issue right before the finish where you think you're going to get the win or second, and next thing you know, you're coming in and you're just up to whoever comes in before you because something's happened. How do you deal with that afterwards? I see at the races, at the wrestling meets, you've all seen this, even that guy with the flat tire in his Prius, throwing wrenches, on the side of the road, mad because of what happened. Or it's the person, at the wrestling meet that just got beat and throwing his headgear and running off. To me, I see something that tells about the person, either not good or bad. It's just how they deal with stuff. But how do you guys deal with that? And what do you think comes of that mentally, like staying positive afterwards? If something didn't go your way, like pushing through the end of something and then like dealing with the results, whether it's a positive or negative.
So I have a kind of just an own personal rule with it. Good or bad, I don't let myself overdo it. So it doesn't matter if, for example, if I would have won the race that you're speaking of, or if I would have got 5th place, and I don't let myself spend too much time on the positive or the negative. I do think there's downsides to both. I think you can look at the positive too much and get caught up in how great you are and lose sight of the end goal, which was always for me getting better. So I really think that for me, I'll be mad at myself. I'll give myself criticism. I'll think about it, but I'll only allow myself to do that for so many hours, and that's for the person to decide. But I give myself a hard number, whether it's 10 minutes or it's 5 hours or whatever it is, to evaluate, to be mad at myself, or on the flip side, the positive. I won. I'm ecstatic. I'm giving myself till I wake up tomorrow morning. That's it. After that, there's no more celebrating the win. There's no more. There's no more just basking in how great I think I am. It's done. It's on to the next one, because I think there's negatives to both of them. So to me, it's kind of give yourself a boundary. So because I think there's good things that come out of being hard on yourself, and I think there's bad things about being too happy with the win or whatever. So you have to refocus quick. And I'm sure Brady can talk about this, because you turn around usually and you're right back in practice a day later. So you can't bask in the good, and you can't mope over the bad too long. So you really got to get it out of the way quick. So for me, it was always the wins were the next morning, and that's it. No more talking about them, no more worrying about them, no more being on cloud nine. And same with the losses. That was that most I gave myself to the next morning. But usually, even on the losses, I only gave myself the drive home. However far the drive home was, that was kind of my rule of thumb. If it was 40 minutes or if it was 12 hours, that's all I had to worry about it, to be mad, to figure out what I needed to improve on. And then I went from there. That was always my mindset.
Yeah, I think it just kind of goes back to what your purpose is and why you're doing the racing or doing the wrestling, is to get better and to try these attacks in wrestling, or see how many passes I can put on. And I mean, you're down by a position and a few corners left. I mean, you just give it what you got and take what you. I mean, it is what it is. It's the outcome, but it's the experience that you got during that you can kind of pick apart. And I did this really well, and vice versa. You're up in front of someone now. You know, hey, what you got to do to seal the win. You know, I'd rather be behind someone than in front of someone, just because I know I can pass them. I don't like protecting anything. But after the race, I mean, I think 100% either way is, a lot of people like to kind of hone in one area. Like I like to get my space. I like to get away and evaluate by myself and kind of come down and have my Mountain Dew so I can get some sugar in me and get my mind back. And I mean, I didn't do a lot of winning, so I was always reevaluating on what the heck I did wrong. But just making sure that, one, you just stay humble, because we're all doing this for the same reason, and that's for the love of the sport, and see how tired you can get and see how many corners you can hit, and just those little things.
So I got one other thing I want to ask you guys. This is going to be, I don't want to say a touchy subject. I'm gonna make myself look guilty here, because Brady knows how guilty I am on this, and Brady's became my personal coach on this, whether he knows it or not. But so whether it be a parent, and Matt and I, we talked about this quite a bit, and I think it's important to just kind of get some thoughts out there, whether it be a parent of a kid, or whether it be myself watching somebody wrestle, or myself watching somebody race, being judgmental, I would call it. Whether, Brady knows as well as anybody that somebody doesn't make weight, so to speak, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Well, it's hard for me in my seat, 100 pounds heavier than I used to be type situation, to sit here and judge somebody. It's hard for me sometimes to see a parent, get upset about a kid, and I told Matt, and I was talking about this, most parents have no idea how many quick decisions, I mean, split second decisions that 4-year-old or that 6-year-old or 10-year-old has to make going around a track that's, say, 3 miles long. It's the same situation when we talk wrestling, Brady. Like, how many split second decisions do you make during a match? It's not like slow motion or watching it from a distance, and, well, shoot, why didn't he do this? In those situations, how would you, I mean, if you have a chance to talk to somebody or something, how would you say that the persona that puts out whether someone's having a bad day or a good day on the track or the mat or whatever, just how do you coach somebody to understand what's going on?
Well, I think the big thing, most of the problems come from kids that are on way too fast a machine. So I'd probably tell a parent to throw them on something way slower, humble them pretty quick, and they can be grateful for having a machine that they can drive and can run easily. But I think again, by situation, and it's hard because you got to know what's going on first before you say anything. And some of that is just kind of asking kind of picky questions and kind of see where the parent or the kid thinks. Because a lot of these times, I mean, you see it more at the national races where their parents have a mortgage. They're taking an extra mortgage out so their kids can go race, and the kids know it, like, and it's hard because they know their parents have everything invested in them, which is awesome for the kid that they have those opportunities. But sometimes it's more on the kid than the parents think.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I also think so. Like I said, it's very situational. So say the kid is, there's no doubt that the kid's passionate about the sport and passionate about winning. I mean, so that your kid or whoever's they're in it, they're trying. To me, that's a tough one. Like those are more you need to sit down and say they lost or had a bad race instead of getting too in an uproar over it. Really sit down and help them evaluate, I guess, more nicely, because like Brady said, they've already got other things going on in their mind. My parents are doing this or that. They're obviously passionate about it. They're not just out there just riding around, not giving a crap that their parents have invested a lot and stuff like that. So I think it's very situational for sure. I think there's definitely times for tough coaching. I'm not a coach, so this is definitely just an opinion, but I think there's definitely times for it, but there's also times for not. And I know me personally, there was nobody that was harder on me. It didn't matter what you said or did to me. It was not as hard. I was way harder on myself in my head. People just didn't know it, probably to a fault to some extent. I was too much, and that's kind of how I learned to set that limit on myself, is don't just sit there and get lost in the bad for days on end. Really give yourself a hard time. This is all the longer I can basically evaluate and whine and cry about how bad I did, sort of thing. So I think it's very, very situational on that for sure. I still stick by what I said before. When they're real, real young, I don't think you want to push them that hard and be that hard on them. I think it's definitely wait till they're in their teenage years, but that's just my personal opinion.
Gotcha. I think the hard thing is also like celebrating the little wins as a parent, because I don't know, that's the one thing I struggle with. Even, I mean, I started a brand new program, but I still have all these expectations. Is you always want more, and that's what the parents want. But trying to get your kid to celebrate in small amounts and not take it as, hey, I'm the best person in the world. Like it's a fine line, because you gotta know kind of where that's at, because you're either gonna have a kid that, one, knows he has money or knows he's fast, whether he is or not, and then he's gonna either get humbled really quick, So it's finding that fine line of being able to celebrate little wins, but also staying humble.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one, because we're in a sport that's competition. It's ego driven, no matter what. But the ego is the killer, so you really have to be very careful with it. And that's my like I said, I already said my rule. My rule was, like, I gave myself hard number of, that's all the longer I can celebrate, or that's all the longer I can cry about my loss. That's it, and get over it at that point and move on to the next race. That's how I handled it, and I know there's definitely other ways to do it, but that was my personal way of handling it.
The reason I asked this is it comes full circle to me when you guys are talking about the positivity and mental and preparing and everything, and that you've done the right thing. You get done, it may just be a guy in the B class, and it might be a dad or a buddy or a brother, that hounds you saying, what the heck did you do that for? And you can do better than that. To me, that starts, like you were saying, you get done with that race, you got a small time there to celebrate or be, or feel bad about yourself. But then with that dwelling around you, with the negativity, it's like, how does that carry into the next thing, and you hear that kind of stuff. So I think what you guys are saying, like how you handle it, how you control it. I know, Brady, what's that saying you always tell me? Control. How do you always say that?
Control you control. I don't know.
Control what you can control. Only worry about what you can control, or something. I just see that to be, again, everyday life. And you got a guy that drives a Prius to the Grand Nationals, you know, and he might park beside $100,000 trailer, but you know, if that's all he's got, he's happy with it, man. Be happy and drive it to the next one, right?
Yep.
My best finish ever, an Ironman 2016. Me and my mom in a 2009 Chevy Colorado 2-wheel drive, 5-speed manual, nothing else. You don't need the rig, I can promise. You just need the mindset and the will to do it.
You just reminded me of something when you said that. I think Brady will remember this, but when Brady was really young, he loved the dirt bikes. We got him on a KTM, and he wanted to do the arena cross. We did Des Moines, and then we went down to Kansas City. Do you remember that, Brady?
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget. We pulled in there, Matt. We're in our minivan with this little 50 Junior KTM in the middle. And we pull in there and we park behind a big old like freight truck, I say a KTM guys and a semi. And here we back in with the minivan with our little trailer in there, or a little bike in there and stuff. And yeah, it's just kind of funny. It's just be proud that you can be there and do the best that you can with any situation, so. But
yep.
So would you guys like to just take a second here between you and just kind of give your thoughts on, once again, like this whole series, whether it was about the tires, the pick of the machine, all that kind of stuff, just with all you guys experience, talk to that, first year Brady Kyner, the first year Matt Lindle getting started, or the guy that's in, when you were in a B class or C class or whatever it might be. Speak now. Matt, you said something earlier that really just kind of shook me a little bit. And you said, when we were talking before this, you said something about, I wish I would have known that when I was younger, So having said that, it's kind of like a little letter you're writing to yourself at the end. What would you tell somebody as an overall, speaking of the mind and the fitness and just the staying focused and everything, what would you tell that person that's racing, or again, I think it translates to everyday life?
Yeah, if I could go back and tell myself when I started racing, the first thing would be invest in yourself before you invest in the machine. So ride what you got and put the investment in yourself, and that means physically do the research, put in the work physically, and then also with the nutrition. And then for me, I like to put a lot of pressure on myself. I think I would have told myself to relax a little bit and enjoy it a little bit more. I did enjoy it, but I just also put a lot of pressure on myself. It was not any outside influences that were doing it. It was just my own mind. I think I needed to relax a little bit, but invest in yourself before the machine. And then when you have confidence in yourself and you're happy with the direction you're heading with yourself, then start investing in the machine. And I think that'll be, like Brady said, it'll keep you humble. I mean, that's finding that balance with your ego is huge in the sport. You've got to find that balance, otherwise you'll get lost in it. So invest in yourself, then start investing in the machine, and then and listen to these past episodes and invest smartly with your machine when you get to that point. But I think the first year, I wish I would have invested 100% of the money I spent on my machine just into myself or time instead of into the machine.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree. I mean, you make the machine go as fast as it can go. Like, your machine can only go as fast as you push it. So investing in you, and then I always believe protection. I mean, people just scam money on helmets and neck braces, and I think that's the most important part than anything on the machine. Like, I could care less what kind of shocks or tires. I don't even know what's on mine. You just jump on and you just ride whatever you got. And I think that's what people get caught up on is, I got to buy this year-old Hunter Hart $14,000 machine where you could go pick up something from the used lot or Facebook Marketplace and be just as fine. And I think that's where people get caught up on social media of what they look like rather than what they're feeling like when they're out on the track. So, I mean, that's just my thoughts. I mean, I couldn't even tell you what's on my machine other than it goes forward and I can push the throttle. So.
Cole Trickle.
Yeah, to hit on that a little more, Brady saying there that as I spoke in the last podcast, I've rode every major shock manufacturer's product for at least one season. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter if you buy Chris Borch's, Walker Fowler's, Hunter Hart's, Bryson Neal's old machine, my old machine, Brady's old machine. There's no magic sauce. You're not going to find it. There's no amount of money that's going to buy that magic you're hoping for, and that I always thought as a kid there was. I just always thought there's magic with those guys' machines. I'm not saying they're not a little bit better. There might be, but there is absolutely no magic sauce going on there. That's why like you said, invest in yourself first. And I agree with the protection too. A lot of people overlook it, and the fitness is part of that protection. The stronger you are, the more fit you are, the less mistakes you're going to make, the harder it is to get injured. And so that I completely agree with what Brady was saying there. There is no magic in those machines, no matter if you spend $20,000 or you spend $5,000 on it. There's no magic.
Cool. Well, this is really good. I'm gonna ask Chris real quick. Do we have any questions for him, right quick?
Yep. So there's 2 comments out there tonight. We had a question out here. Ben asked Matt, basically, what was your mentality at the start of the race? So we've talked about like during the race and up to the race. What's your kind of, maybe even Brady chime in on this as well. What's your thought process? Are you guys nervous when you guys start? What's kind of like your gut feeling going into a big race?
Yeah, I was always nervous for sure. Never did get over that. Probably never will. Like I said, I probably put too much pressure on myself. But it's I don't know, I saw in the comment there, he's talking about the yawning. I did that a lot too. It's not necessarily because you're relaxed. It's more because your brain's wanting oxygen is why you do that. I've read a little bit on that on pro athletes, and that's typically when you see them doing that. It's because I have also used to yawn a lot on the line, but no, very nervous for sure. I think that's also partially a good thing. But I would always, when I got to the line, it was always just try to relax until we got the helmets on. Then after that, it was really just for me, it was focus on the first few corners. I tried to just really focus on that start in the first few corners. Then once that was kind of what I tried to hone in on, I guess, when I'm on the starting line. And then I just, after those first few corners, then it was just try and ride my race. But really just focus on that. Whether it was GNCC and I'm just hitting the button, or if it was hands on helmet at the Iowa race, it was focus on whatever the sequence was that I had. Make sure I'm in the right gear. Make sure I got the clutch in. Make sure I got the throttle where I want it to be, or whatever it may be, just my sequence that I had down from practice.
Yeah, I just worried about getting through the first corner. Everybody tries to go at each other, so I just wanted to get through, and then after that, I was fine.
Good.
I remember, Matt, you told me once about, we're going to get to this race prep and race day, but speaking of this and kind of leading up to the race, you mentioned to me one time that the work's been put in. The easiest part is the race day.
Should be. That's, if you've done the work, it should be the easy and the fun part. If you've put in the mental and physical work and the prep of the machine and everything like that, the race day should be relatively easy comparatively. All you've got to do is go out there and hit your marks. And I know that's easier said than done, but that's kind of the end goal, or at least what I was shooting for. And I think what they referenced in there was Jed or somebody on the line in Supercross. It's the work's put in, so that you're just trying to, at that point, you're just trying to hit your marks. You're just out there. That's all you're doing. You're not trying to improve at that point. You've already done that during the week. Same, I would assume it's the same with wrestling. You've put in the work and done the drills. When you're there, you're flowing. You're just trying to do what you know you can do at that point.
And I've heard a lot of coaches, Brady, you can probably comment on this, but wrestling and sitting in the stands now watching the wrestling going on, and I've had people say, well, what's that coach? He ain't doing nothing because he's just sitting there. He's not saying a word. And then you see another coach that's screaming and yelling and stuff. And I've heard people around you before tell me that, what is it? One of your club coaches, Jed Tunick would always tell you he's not going to yell because you put in the work. You know what to do. What am I supposed to teach him now? So that's kind of going in that same thing like Matt's saying. If you've prepared and everything and you've got everything ready to go, it's like that should be the easiest time. Now you just go do what you've been practicing.
Gotcha. So another comment was out here as well, which I had wrote down, that I hear a lot of guys talking with a bunch of racers, Pedialyte. So Nick Bogren put out here that, he struggled with the water intake and was actually had too much water intake this year, but he finally figured it out, and he was drinking Pedialyte Wednesday through Saturday before each race. And I kind of hear that. I know what Paul Cirque drinks Pedialyte and others. What's your guys' input?
Well, first of all, look what it does for Paul.
What?
Nothing. Just kidding.
Yeah,
I never.
Yeah, go ahead.
I never got super into the Pedialyte. I did drink it. I had some electrolyte drinks that I thought were a little bit better than Pedialyte, but I did drink them. I didn't drink them religiously, though. I never had a problem with the water intake personally. I'm a water guy in general. Just my day-to-day normal. I drink a gallon of water. That's not abnormal for me at all. That's just how I am. So I never really struggled with that. So I can't really speak too much on that one, but I do know electrolytes are important. I know that. You're not going to retain it if you don't have proper nutrition.
Yeah, Pedialyte's been around for a while, and I kind of got away from it with weight cutting just because of how heavy it made me feel and how thick it was. So I could just kind of switch to just plain old Gatorade. And I didn't really worry about any of those things up until the day of. You put probably 3/4 of a gallon in, and then really it's just the last bit that you want to make sure you retain. So I'd always go half Gatorade or whatever, Powerade, and half water, and just make sure that was the last sip I got, probably the last 16 ounces, just so something could stick. But also you want that water to leave you because, you need to sweat. Otherwise, it's no good. So, you're getting salt and all those other things in your other foods, so it's not as big of a deal as unless you're eating straight carnivore diet or whatever, and you're not getting those electrolytes and salt and sodium and those other things.
I know one thing that I used to have a problem with was when I would drink my Hydro Pack or whatever. I had a habit, especially when I first got it, is I would start drinking that thing, and by halfway through the race, it was empty. I just got sucking on it so much that I get it, and then, I kind of get an upset stomach and stuff because I drank it too fast. I didn't manage it very well.
Yeah, I didn't even that trick. I started not having cold water because then it wasn't tasting as well. You wouldn't drink it as fast.
I never even wore one.
You're too tough.
The only time I wore a pack was during the 10-hour. I quit wearing them. I didn't like them. They annoyed me, and I hydrated enough. Usually I might grab a quick drink in the pit or something, but I got away from them. They made me feel too heavy because I would do the same thing. I'd drink them too much, I think.
Interesting. Any other ones, Chris?
Nope, that's it for tonight. It's kind of been quiet.
So I think I've learned a lot tonight. If I'm going to, talk to, let's say I got a friend, or somebody and they're having issues, and, obviously stay positive around them, and I wouldn't say a word, if they come to the race and they park their Prius and they've gotten there and everything's been safe for them on the way there, and they it's what they choose to drive. It's how they drive it mentally, and block out everything else, as someone making fun of them or, maybe not getting the mileage that Matt's doing and they're still driving a Prius, is staying focused and mentally tough in a situation like that. So.
Yeah. I've learned a lot too, Andy. Especially if I'm yawning while you're talking. It's because I'm trying to get oxygen to the brain.
You probably learned a lot because Andy wasn't talking that much.
Yeah.
Here we go. Well, hey, I really, really thank you too for coming on, Brady. Last second, Matt, you've been just a champion in this whole thing with this series. We couldn't have done it without you, and I know you're right back on board next week with race prep.
Yep.
And that's something that I'll be the first one to admit that we were not the best on, were we, Brady?
I still don't know what it is.
He's my little Cole Trickle, man. I got told to drive, and I can drive, so that's what I'm doing.
Well, we also have Kurt Cornelius joining us next week as well.
Yep. So get a little bit of perspective from the utility guys. So yeah. Big difference in, I suppose, the race prep and a sport quad to a utility quad with the difference of stuff there. So can't wait to hear it. So, well, I know you guys are super busy, and we thank you guys for coming on. Let you get back to your families now and everything. And hopefully somebody picks something up tonight, and we'll be able to apply it, come April 19th. So thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I think that's our quickest one.
Yeah, good episode tonight.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it's all, the mental game is a big part of the racing. We just, it's just not a joyride. It could be and should be for the kids. Have fun out there, but once we get more competitive, the older we get, it's more not necessarily maybe a race against your competitors, but maybe a race from within. That there's a lot of obstacles during those 2 hours that you have to overcome. Keep pushing yourself, get that other next mini win. I even apply that from day to day. Job is somewhat stressful, so I look for mini wins throughout the day. Myself, I use still to do a checklist. What can I get done by 10 o'clock this morning or 11 o'clock, and use those mini wins throughout the day to get the results you want at the end of the day. So.
Yep, I agree. I think we learned a lot. I hope, especially new parents coming in is where I see things is not, you want to push your kids, but you're not sure how. If you're not understanding the sport, you don't understand what they are doing. The parents that are out there racing, I think they have such a better understanding of what the kids go through, or whether they're in the youth or the adults, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. So some of the stuff that was said tonight, I think we can all apply to not just racing, but how we look at a racer, whether before or after, or whether it's our everyday life. We apply to work, on the mental side of things. And it's always interesting if you talk to these guys, a lot of your pros, or whether it be in wrestling or any other sport, like they were talking, your baseball, your football, anything. And they'll tell you so much of it's mental, and talking about that tonight, with those two, I think we've seen from them guys in different ways of life that mental is like key to everything, from getting up in the morning, like Brady was mentioning, making your bed, or compared to not doing it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just little things like that, getting the day started and everything. And knowing those many victories, like Matt was saying. And I don't know, the thing I got tonight that I liked the most is I loved what Matt was saying, how he gave himself that time to either celebrate or pick apart what he did wrong. That whether it was a 16-hour drive from South Carolina to National, or an hour home from Iowa, but that was a very interesting thing that I think even in normal life, I think I'm going to try to carry over, because, I brought stuff home from work, and you spend an hour of your night, talking to your wife or the kids about what happened. And it's like, yeah, I can't control that, so that's a pretty cool idea, though, is to have that, no matter how much time it is, hey, that's what I've got to deal with it. And then I move on, so that's pretty interesting.
Yep. All right. Well, next week we got race prep. Like we said, with Matt Lindle's going to rejoin us back along with Kurt Cornelius, kind of talking over both sport quads and utility machines. So thanks for those who have stuck around for the whole hour. Hopefully everybody got something from this episode. Until next time, We'll see you later.